the American League West, who can unseat the Seattle Mariners, and are the Astros a team on the way down and the A's a team on the way up? Let's talk about it on a big-time crossover.
You are Locked On MLB Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans, and hello, A's fans, and hello, Astros fans, and welcome to a massive Locked On MLB crossover. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully, and we are part of here on the Locked On Podcast Network, which is now the #1 sports podcasting network. Today's episode is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. Use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Today's show is going to be streamed on the Locked On A's, the Locked On Astros, and the Locked On MLB feeds. I'm your pal Sully. I'm hosting both Locked On MLB and Locked On A's for the next few weeks, but I am not hosting Locked On Astros. That's where I drew the line because they already have two terrific hosts. Eric is not joining us today. I don't mean to disappoint you, ladies and gentlemen. We used to call him H-Town Wheelhouse, but right now we're going to take a chance with Brett Chancey, the host of your Locked On Astros show. How are you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm doing good, Sully. It is great to talk to you. Baseball, I think, is set for a pretty exciting season in 2026. I think there's a lot of storylines for a lot of fan bases to follow.
Yeah, I think so too. And, you know, the Astros missed the postseason last year to the delight of 29 fan bases, but not of you. And they were a team that, while they fell short of the postseason, it's not like they had a bad year. They actually finished with an identical record of the Detroit Tigers, who managed to be a wild card team. And lest we forget, the Astros were in first place in mid-September, going into that big series against Seattle. The Astros obviously have had an unbelievably great run. And even just taking the post-COVID years, the Dusty Baker years, and recently, where you've had the pennants, you've had trips to the ALCS, you've had the World Series title, obviously, in 2022. It's been an unbelievable run that this team has had. Now, all things come to an end, and they had an interesting offseason where they made one huge addition, but they saw some other subtractions as well. And I talked about on the show the other day here on the Locked On A's feed, that there's a lot of reasons to look at this A's team and say, do you know what? They're not that far off. I mean, they finished, 11 games behind the Astros. But as I said the other day, all they really have to do is avoid what has happened in their final year in Oakland and their first year in West Sacramento, as they had both times a horrific May and June that basically torpedoed their season both years. Both teams have a lot of talent. Both teams have a lot of youth. The Astros have a lot of experience, and the A's are at least no longer in a situation where they don't know where they're playing. What's your thought about the AL West? And is Seattle the team to beat, or are they going to come back down to earth a little bit?
Well, Seattle, I think, is the team to beat by default because they did win the division. So you've got to give them that respect, and you're the division champs until somebody else has crowned the division champs. And, the Astros had that luxury over a few years. And, but Seattle, where you would think going into this season, you would have thought they would have had a much bigger offseason. I think it was a little bit underwhelming compared to what other teams did. Losing Suarez, I think, was, even though he's a big swing and miss guy and he didn't really perform to the level he was in Arizona, he was still a big bat, a big person off the bench, kind of possibly take that pressure off of Cal Riley. The pitching, I think, is solid. As always, going into the season, it's just what offense is going to show up in Seattle. I think until somebody dethrones them or takes over first for a significant amount of time, it's their division to lose. I think the Astros aren't far behind that if they keep Isak Paredes. I think if he stays on this, and even though they have a crowded infield, I think they can and will be contenders for the division title. But you've got the Rangers. The Rangers have shored up their pitching again. If their offense wakes up, they're losing, Simeon's gone, but they still have Seager. They still have some young guys that I think have a lot of potential, have high ceilings. The AOS is going to be competitive. The A's are going to be right there where they may not wow you with pitching. Oh my gosh, their offense it kind of reminds me of the offense the A's had back in the late 80s, early 90s when you had
them's fighting words.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I remember, growing up watching the Bass Brothers, watching the back-to-back rookie of the years and just who they had on those teams. I mean, the A's have a legit offense. It's just for them, like a lot of teams, how is their pitching going to perform? The guys that they have may have a lot of undue pressure on them. But look, it's 162 games, and that's why you play them, because it's anybody's ball game at the beginning. I think you have 4 of the 5 teams competitive with each other throughout the season. I'm not discounting the Angels. I just don't know a ton of what the Angels bring. Oh, you are? Okay.
I absolutely am. I think it's one of the great tragedies is that we have a franchise that by all reckoning should be a big market, big contender, and they've had so they had 2 generational superstars and couldn't put a mediocre product on the field. I do think that while it was not a huge offseason for Seattle, I do think the acquisition of Brendan Donovan was a good pickup. That was I think he's going to fit in very well with what they need. And keeping Josh Naylor. I mean, I talked about this on Locked On MLB. Sometimes the sign of a good offseason is retaining a player who didn't skedaddle. I mean, that's one of the things that happened with, you look at Philadelphia bringing back Kyle Schwarber, you look at New York bringing back Bellinger.
Right.
I'm sure everyone wanted to have, Phillies fans and Yankee fans want a new big shiny toy, but they didn't lose a big shiny toy either. Naylor is a really good fit in Seattle. And I think that, and I think Donovan will give him a new dimension in that second base. I think Seattle's pitching is very good. And I think, obviously you have Raleigh and you have, Rodriguez and you have a Rosarena. You have players who could, Rosarena has been a little disappointing recently, but you have players who certainly have the ability to do that. So I at this recording, I still think Seattle is the team to beat. But at this point last year, I thought Texas was the team to beat. I don't have the same faith that you have of Texas. The Simeon for Nimmo trade is I don't know. That's a strange trade for me to try to figure out. And they obviously still have some pitching, but my suspicion is always when you have a Hall of Fame manager like Bruce Bochy who jumps ship, so who doesn't come back, that's me sniffing the water, going, are they going to do a rebuild? Are they going to do a rebuild?
Well, I do know finances has been a concern for them. They went all in 2023. You tip your hat to them. They beat everybody. They won the World Series. It worked.
Yeah.
But now at the end of that road, you have a short-lived, you have like this high cresting wave and it crashes down. And I don't really count them out because of their pitching. In Houston, we're familiar with teams, the 05 team, who had amazing pitching, a horrible offense. You can get swept by the White Sox. You go back and you add any lineup from 2017 till now, and they're better than the offense that went to the World Series in 05, and they probably win that World Series. But should have, would have, could have,
I mean, the early 2000s, what you had with the A's, where you had probably the best starting 3 in baseball, and a phenomenal offense, and there was always something going wrong with the bullpen, they were always losing that little game here or there to a tiny bump. Slide Eric Burns, and they win against the they win against Boston in 2003, and you have the huge lead they put up in Game 1 against Minnesota in 2002, and they still lost that game. I mean, a bounce here, a bounce there, then that may be 1 or maybe even 2 World Series titles in Oakland. But you know what? again, coulda, woulda, and did I mention shoulda? When we come back, I want to take a good long look at the A's and to see, as a team on the rise, what the good folks in Houston think about that. Ever want to experience the NBA Finals live and in person? FanDuel is giving you the chance to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. Here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future, and you'll automatically be entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right. Flights, tickets, the whole schmear. And if you're looking at the board and you're thinking about which team could make a deep run, this is the perfect time to lock it in. I love futures this time of year. Whether it's picking a team to win the championship or grab a conference title, it adds an extra layer of excitement to every game down the stretch. And you know what? Now you can not only win cash, but it could also send you to the NBA Finals. Visit FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost on an NBA future and get entered for your chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals. Play your game with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the National Basketball Association. Thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen of the day, and thanks for making Locked On the #1 sports podcasting network. If you haven't already, check out the new Everydayer Club. You get free audio of Locked On MLB. It's similar to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and also check out the Everydayer Club Discord. So check us out at lockedonmlb.supercast.com. We're doing a big old crossover. A's, Astros, Locked On MLB here on the Friday show with Brett Chancey. All right, tell me what you think, because I think the A's are a team on the rise. And I do think, I mentioned this the other day, I think the fact that you've had 2 straight years where the A's have that massive amount of insecurity. The final year in Oakland, what's that all about? The first year in West Sacramento, what's that all about? Now they know they're in West Sacramento for the next few years. Now, it's not going to look pretty in the attendance, and we all know that, and we're all aware of what's happening here. But they also have, unlike all those years in Oakland, have made commitments to some of those players. We know Butler's going to be around. We know Rooker's going to be around. We know Soderstrom's going to be around. And we also know that Kurtz and Wilson are going to be around as well. And, Severino is signed, and hopefully that'll mean something there. The fact that there is, for the A's, at least a little bit of stability, and they're not going to be living out of their suitcases, the fact that they had a lousy May in each of the last 2 years to torpedo it, if they can avoid that, I think an 83-84 win season is completely doable. And with a move here or there, you can get to the higher 80s. I think the wild card contention is a real thing for the West Sacramento A's. Tell me what you think about it sitting there in H-Town.
Yeah, definitely. Now, what is interesting is when you look at the projections, guys like Fangraphs put, the Astros at 81 wins, the Rangers at 81 wins, the A's at 80 wins, and the Mariners at 88 wins. And so, how much stock do you put in predictions? Well, I don't put a ton of stock in predictions, but anything over what they did last year, I think, is a success for the A's. But that these young players and the Nick Kurtz and the Wilsons and those guys, they're not going to be like, we're young and we're still trying to grow and let's just win a few more games, guys. Like, they're literally in it to win it. And that's every team should be. I think realistically, the A's could win between 80 and I think 84 games. I don't know that I put them higher. But then again, the A's, we call them in Houston the pesky A's. The A's are the team that give the Astros fits. And even when the A's aren't playing good, when they meet the Astros, something changes. A switch flips. And we remember the big brush up, almost the brawl that was almost in the Astros dugout a couple seasons ago. And, Justin Garneau basically got into it with, one of the A's players. But I think if they can avoid injury, if they can avoid any lulls, then they will be scratching the surface of a wild card berth. Now, a lot of stuff has to go their way. I think the Rangers probably have to underperform. I think the Astros probably have to underperform a little bit for that to be a reality. It's less of a cause, I think, to worry about because they are playing a more diverse schedule. You're not playing as many division games. You're playing the whole league, so that helps. If the A's hit you at the right place at the right time, they can knock you down a notch. I mean, the Astros last year had the division lead for a while and then lost it, and then they were eliminated by one game, and they go to the playoffs. One game, and you know what? Actually, they're in the playoffs in the National League if they make it in there. And you know what I'm saying, going in. So I say 84 wins is where I top them out at. I don't see them winning more, but that's just my estimation. And I could be solely wrong in underselling this A's team because they are fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think that this is something I talked about at Locked On MLB that, you know, and some people really, really got mad at me for saying this, but a team doesn't owe their fan base a World Series title. The team owes them an entertaining summer. And for fans, the bar for the West Sacramento A's is different than the bar for the Dodgers, Phillies, Blue Jays, and let's face it, the Astros. It's different. And a winning season in West Sacramento would have to be considered a triumph. I mean, it would really have to be. I mean, that's not me saying. One person accused me of, you know, calling out for participation trophies. You know, go pound sand. You know, it's for the A's who are been dragged through the mud that was putting together a wonderful team at the end of the 2010s. Won multiple 90 some odd win teams, were a regular playoff spot. If they kept that club together, included Marcus Semien, then they may have gone in to 2021 or 2022 as legit winners. They may have had that position like the Texas Rangers did when they won it all in 2023. But alas, instead they had, you know, we all know what happened. I don't need to review it. We need to, you know, to open up that wound. Okay. I'm trying to stay positive here. Okay.
I love it.
So a winning season in West Sacramento could really, first of all, would be fun for the fans of West Sacramento. You know, we know they're not going to be there forever. We see that they're building the ballpark in Las Vegas. And whatever any of us think about Las Vegas as a market, it sure looks like they're really going to go there. Now, how long is it going to take? I don't know, and neither do you. But the bar for the A's, an 83-win team, would mean that more often than not, you're watching an A's game and you're seeing them win. And I know that's out for, you know, that means something. One of the biggest thing that's going against the A's in their postseason hopes is the fact that, there is no super team in the American League. There isn't. The Blue Jays are close, but they're not quite there yet. And they're also a team that could regress. Okay. You have a bunch of very good teams. Cleveland is a very good team. Detroit's a very good team. New York is a very good team. Boston's a very good team. Seattle's a very good team. Houston's a very good team. And you had teams that were disappointments last year. Kansas City, Texas, and especially Baltimore. Now, Baltimore is the main reason why I think the A's are going to have a hard time getting into the playoffs. Because the Orioles are just a few years removed from a 100-win team. There's a ton of young talent on that squad that just didn't click last year. They put in a Jenga piece of Pete Alonso with all those young players. And do you know what team also had a disappointing year a couple of years ago where they have a ton of young talent and things weren't clicking? Toronto. And then the next year they got to within one collision in left field away from winning the World Series.
Right.
Or one toe being lifted up slightly away from winning the World Series. So Baltimore has way too much talent for me to write them off. But there's also a lot of talent with the West Sacramento A's. And yes, I insist on calling them that because that's where they play.
Well, hey, you know what? And for those that are in West Sacramento, I mean, hey, hang your hat on that. They say home is where your hat hangs, and the A's hat hangs in West Sacramento. I don't have a problem with that. Even as a baseball fan, you almost would prefer that over the Las Vegas A's, right?
Well, just call them the Sacramento A's. I mean, that's where they're playing. Why call them the Athletics? While they're there, call them that. And who knows? Maybe you'll get more fans excited to go there. And maybe they have a playoff game. It'll be really. That's what I tell you. That's what I want. I want a playoff game. I want a playoff game in Sutter Health Park. I want that more than anything right now. All right.
Now, would they be forced? Would they be forced to move to a different stadium if they had a playoff game?
I hope not.
I'm just saying.
Would be terrible. That would be terrible. That would file that under terrible. Well,
okay.
Who's not going to be? Who's not going to be terrible? The Houston Astros. When we come back, Brett Chancey and I are going to be talking a little bit about, are they on the way down, or do they have one more big fight in them? But before we go to that, I want to just quickly do the trivia question. Trivia question I had the other day was, what Yankee infielder and coach ended with 12 World Series rings for his trouble? 12 World Series rings. And a couple of you got it right, including Ruth Warkenden 498. Trivia, my in-house Yankee fan says Frank Cressetti. Yep. Got so many rings, he eventually asked for engraved shotguns. And that was actually, it's hilarious that the idea of it being a ring and you got to get the ring is a relatively new phenomenon in baseball. It used to be, there was sometimes you would get a tie pin, or you would get, you would ask the team, what do you want as your championship prize? And Yogi Berra, who got no shortage of them, asked for a cigarette case. And so there are other things you could get. Now it's always a ring. But he wanted, he had enough rings. If he ran out of fingers, give me an engraved shotgun. That's right.
Hey, in Texas, that plays.
Yes. And in some parts of the Bronx, that plays too. But we're not going to go there. We come back, we will talk Astros. You got workplace chaos. You got deadlines stacking up. You got an inbox that's overflowing. And the one position you have to fill, it's sitting wide open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is the job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for, what their skills are, their experience, their location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Do you know what? Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners to Locked On MLB will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you've heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. That was a flawless ad read. I just wanted to.
That was phenomenal. I'm gonna nominate you for an award for that.
I better win the Golden Globe next year. All right, Brett. We're talking Astros right now. Now they did lose Framber Valdez. They brought in a guy from Japan to basically take his place. A lot of people, once he left, said, Framber Valdez is bad at this, is bad at that. Do you know what? He may not have been the nicest guy in the world. I'll take 192 innings with a good ERA and World Series heroes to them. But they still have Hunter Brown. We saw Jason Alexander show some flashes of excellence last year. I don't discount this pitching staff that they have, and of course, I don't discount their lineup. What are the biggest reasons to be enthusiastic about the Astros' chances of maybe even going back to the big dance? And what is your biggest concern?
Well, my biggest concern, we'll just start with that because I'm always positive, always Stros. So let's start with the concerns first. The biggest concern going into the year is the log jam in the infield, the Isak Paredes and Carlos Correa conundrum. Whenever they went and got Correa last year because of Paredes went down with a hamstring injury. Look, Correa came back, Houston's son. Everybody loves Correa. The
And he did well.
enthusiasm,
He did well.
yes, the intangibles, you love it. But they kick the can down the road of what happens once he comes back, once Paredes is there, and you have 5 infielders for 4 infield spots. Well, they offloaded Mauricio Dubon, who I think is going to do great in Atlanta. I hate to see him go. Replace him with Nick Allen. He's a bench guy. But where do you put this guy? And that concern is only if there are rifts that are created in the clubhouse. Now, I don't think you have any guys that are going to form a mutiny, or you're not going to have. Houston has a very good hold of their clubhouse culture, but my concern is the infield logjam. The other biggest concern is, can Yordan Alvarez play 140 to 150 games and be healthy? And if he can, he's one of the most dangerous, if not the most dangerous left-hander out there in the game. So those two things immediately are my first concerns. I think they're going to work it out. I think Paredes is not getting traded. I think he stays. I think this lineup is solid. Your 1 through 7 hitters are phenomenal. Your 7, 8, 9 hitters still have a chance to make some noise. But what I love are the huge amounts of talent we have on the pitching side. You've got Hunter Brown, who has been named the opening day starter on day 1 when pitchers and catchers reported. Right. Imai, I like Mike Burrow's addition. I like the Ryan Weiss addition. Spencer Arrighetti is, I believe, going to have the year that we thought he would have last year after up until he had the freak accident, getting hit with the line drive during BP in Seattle.
Yeah, is he healthy? He's healthy this year, right?
He's 100% healthy. He's ready to go.
Because he's a talented dude. Yeah,
you're right. And for the first time, we heard Lance McCullers sound like a defeated guy that's at the end of the road. And we actually talked about that on Backs of the Bullpen, how, look, this might be the last hurrah for Lance McCullers Jr., who is considered kind of a postseason hero for the Astros because of the 2017 season in that World Series. But I think the pitching is going to be phenomenal. The biggest question mark, though, the only concern I really have going into the start of the season is Josh Hader and his health. He had a minor setback. So you need your closer back healthy. Your highest paid closer, you need him healthy. You need him on the bump. Abreu's going to be great. They've got guys like, we've got guys like Colton Gordon, AJ Blueball, who can come in as really great long relief guys. So I think this team's got a lot to be happy about. And people may say I'm overly optimistic or I'm wearing Astros colored glasses, but we've got a lot of dudes. And if those dudes stay healthy, I think this team's going to compete with a lot of baseball teams across Major League Baseball.
And I'm going to make this point regarding the infield logjam. 162 games, when you have a lot of veterans, will open up a lot of spots. I can't tell you how many times I've heard teams go like, oh, they have an excess of outfielders. They have an excess of infielders. Where we're going to play this, we're going to play that. And then someone gets hurt, and all of a sudden, okay, that's where they're going to play. You have players on the team who are not exactly spring chickens anymore. And if you look at, what am I going to do with Paredes? What am I going to do with Correa? Wait. Just wait. I'm not saying I don't have a voodoo doll of of Altuve and Pena going like this.
Right.
But Pena missed some time last year.
He did.
Paredes obviously missed a third of the season last year. And while Walker and Altuve pretty much were healthy the entire year, they're both on the wrong side of 35. And so, and this is coming from a guy in his 50s, but strange things happen. And you just even said they want Yordan Alvarez on the field. Well, that's been a tough ask. So you're going to see where we're going to play all these guys. Just wait. At bats will show up. Because a lot of times I've seen teams do that. Oh, we have an excess of this, we have an excess of that, and then an injury happens, and they bring up some schmuck from AA who's sitting there going, "I don't know what I'm doing." Meanwhile, the veteran you just traded away is playing for Chicago or something like
Yeah.
that. And so
No,
I just I'm making the point that when you see, yes, they dealt they sent Dubon away. Dubon's gone, and I get it, but at the same time, I wouldn't make a move right now. I know there's a lot of rumors about Isak Paredes, and the only reason you move him at this point is if somebody offers you a big something you can't refuse. But
yeah, because I think with him,
even then, no way. I wouldn't
yeah,
make that move.
I think if you trade him, I think you make the team worse automatically. He sees the most pitches. His poolside power is huge for Dyken Park in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
And he would have hit 40.
I still can't remember that's the name of your stadium. I still can't remember that's the name of your stadium.
Dyken Park. Dyken is a Japanese HVAC company. Enron, yeah. Enron went down in flames. Then we're a Minute Maid. Minute Maid gave up the contract to Dyken. But people in Houston, we still call it the juice box.
Yes.
People still call it Minute Maid because they resist the name change.
Yeah. Well, look I think this is going to be an interesting year. I do think the A's are going to be better. And I think the real goal for the A's is 83 wins. To get that winning season. And I know the long-term goal for them is to put a quality product on the field when they open up the half shell in Las Vegas. Lord knows what year that will be. And we don't even know what the heck is going to happen next year. So to have something positive going forward, I think it means a lot. I think there's a bunch of I've said this to Lisa I've said this to Stacey Gatsoulias several times on Locked On Yankees, which is there's going to be a whole bunch of teams between 84 and 89 wins in the American League.
100%.
It's going to be there's going to be a big log jam there. We saw that same thing happen last year.
Yeah.
And, the Tigers were basically one extra inning hit away from going to the ALCS last year. And they finished with the same record as the Houston Astros, who were at the pitch and putt at the beginning of the playoffs.
That's right.
They were having a Whataburger at the beginning of the playoffs.
There you go.
Sorry, I tried to get a little
Read the room, Sully. Good job.
Sorry, my bad on that one.
Nice. Nice Texas reference. I love it.
But so the fact of the matter is, I think that if the A's can get into that scrum, I think it will go a long way.
No, yeah, I think it's going to be competitive. Like I said, I think it's going to be fun. And I actually watched your episode where you talked about like the job of major league teams is to give their fans an entertaining summer. And I think there's going to be a lot of fan bases that have an entertaining summer. And so I'm excited. And hey, if anybody's ever in Houston, let me know. Hit me up on social media. I would love to show you around Dyken Park. There's some really cool stuff. And hey, I just want to say Mike and I are excited. I've got a new show, Back to the Bullpen, that's on the Locked On MLB channel. We'd love for y'all to check it out because when you subscribe to Locked On MLB with Sully, you also get the added bonus of Back to the Bullpen, MLB Game Day, and so much more. So I'm excited about that.
And you can go check us out at the Everydayer Club and check out Locked On MLB or lockedona's.supercast.com. And you can join the Everydayer Discord and get ad-free episodes of the show. Before we go, let me just quickly throw out the trivia question, and it is A's and Astros related, of a player who was a big fan favorite for both the A's and the Astros, whose birthday is the 29th day of February. Josh Reddick. What team did Josh Reddick play for and make a playoff appearance with between his time with the A's and the Astros? He was an A's player. He actually came up with the Red Sox first. Then he played a bunch of years with the A's. Then he won his ring with the Astros. But in between, he played half a season with one other team and went to the playoffs with that team. What team did Josh Reddick make a cameo with and actually got all the way to the league championship series with? And I bet you forgot he played for him because Lord knows I did. And I was always a big Josh Reddick fan.
I almost want to
You are
say the
stumped.
Savannah Bananas.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. He played for the Savannah Bananas. All right. All right. Brett Chancey is the host of Locked On Astros. My name is Paul Francis Sullivan. I am the host of Locked On MLB, and for the next few weeks, the host of Locked On A's. And this has been a Locked On A's, Locked On Astros, Locked On MLB crossover. Please, 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 I'm begging you, just call me Sully.